there. So I imagine Iran making a lot of headlines this morning after it decided to stop oil exports to British and French companies over the weekend.
Well, yes, you'd be right about that. The US push to try and stop Israel from attacking Iran. That's the Guardian's headline. Now, the official line on the surface, the paper says, as was said in an interview to them by the US Joint Chiefs of Staff head General Martin Dempsey yesterday, is that the US and Israel are having what he called a candid, collaborative conversation about whether or not they should attack Iran. But the reality, according to the newspaper at least, is that the US is increasingly losing the power to have any influence over whether Israel decides to attack Iran or not. The general himself admits in that interview that he isn't entirely sure if the US is able to persuade Israel of anything. And the paper says that within the US administration, they are, if you like, simultaneously building up the tension between Israel and Iran and flying off to Jerusalem to try and dissuade Ehud Barak and Benjamin Netanyahu from dropping a bomb. So, in other words, the US policy is completely schizophrenic over this, the Guardian says, and they actually risk sort of moving into a war without anyone necessarily wanting it. Their cartoon rather laughs at how much ability the West actually has to control what Israel decides to do. It shows the British Foreign Affairs Minister William Hague, who yesterday said that Israel should not attack Iran, should leave time for sanctions to work, in a kind of exploding bomb behind him with the headline "Big Bang" or "Hot Air." The implication being, of course, that everything that the West is saying about Iran to Israel is essentially hot air. There's not much they can really do to stop them if they were to attack them. And in that editorial, the Guardian says that Barack Obama really needs to change policy, because the current line can only lead to a war, if you like, that nobody necessarily wants. But because tension is rising so much on both sides, they reckon the only alternative course of action would be to allow Iran to pursue a civilian nuclear policy, and then maybe that way create a space for negotiation.
Now, in the US, the Republican primary race is hotting up in Michigan. Mitt Romney not doing very well, though.
No, he's doing worse than he has done since the beginning of this primary process, according to the Daily Beast today. Now, Michigan is his home state. It should be an easy win when they go to the primary on Tuesday, the 28th, next Tuesday. But Rick Santorum is now outpolling him by 2 to 3 points, not just there, but in the whole country. Now, there's two reasons for this, the Daily Beast says. Firstly, the idea of sexual moral ethics, the idea of anti-abortion and contraception have been making national headlines in the US again, with another controversy over that, which plays well into the hands of the ultra-Catholic Rick Santorum. But also the economy is now playing badly for him, because Mitt Romney has strongly opposed the General Motors bailout in 2009, which cost the Obama administration a lot of money. But it's very popular in Michigan because a lot of people believed it saved over 1 million jobs. But on the principle of fiscal conservatism, Romney opposes it, which is making him unpopular in Michigan, whereas Santorum is quite prepared, even though he is a conservative, to go for a kind of economic populist discourse in which he says sometimes the state does need to help poor people out. The Washington Post also is having a look at just how religious this campaign is becoming. They say as Santorum rises and rises, his discourse isn't just, as presidents have said in the past, talking about how much he believes in God and how that motivates his decisions. He's actually sort of getting involved in theological debates with the other candidates, which can only lead, they say in the Washington Post, in a sectarian kind of direction, because it's bound to start alienating other Christian groups who oppose his specific views.
Speaking of religion, the Vatican has been hit by a fresh scandal.
Yeah, there were some documents leaked to the Italian papers over the weekend which seem to show evidence of corruption and even money laundering leaked by some mould inside the Vatican. Have a look at this editorial from Corriere della Sera. They say these documents should have been published a long time ago. The fact that they weren't shows that the Vatican is living in an ancient era of secrecy and mystery that doesn't have any place in the 21st century, according to them at least. They also call on the Vatican to pay more taxes, something a lot of the left-wing Italian papers have been saying recently. And there's also a piece in The Guardian looking at Mario Monti's new tax inspectors cracking down on Italy's wealthiest. They say apparently they've been on skis in Italy's most expensive resorts, at the Carnival in Viareggio, and at the most expensive nightclubs in Milan, trying to crack down on people paying for things in cash and thus getting discounts, a practice by which the rich, according to that paper, managed to get 120 billion euros out of the Italian state in unpaid taxes last year. This isn't going down well with everyone, though. They do bump into one of Berlusconi's former MPs on the slopes in an expensive Italian ski resort, who says she's not happy about Mario Monti's taxmen trying to show their muscles.
All right, thank you very much, Elena. Elena Casas, our press reviewer, looking at the international newspapers. You're watching live from Paris. A reminder of our headlines. Can Greece seal the deal? Eurozone finance ministers are meeting this Monday to decide whether Athens has done enough to merit a second bailout. We avoided catastrophe. French President Nicolas Sarkozy defends his economic record at the first big rally of his re-election.